as a laboratory, AI laboratory? Your opening remarks, please.
So my view is that India's created the basic platform, Aadhaar, Unified Payment Interface. 97% of the people pay tax online in India. All government transactions are digital. Now we are creating, the digital health mission. We have, the PMJAY, which is the health insurance scheme for 500 million Indians, which is totally digital. So what India does is it throws up an enormous amount of data, humongous amount of data, and data is at the core of artificial intelligence. Now, firstly, massive amount of data which needs to be clean, annotated, and used for artificial intelligence, for purposes of algorithms, etc. But India also has a lot of challenges. The challenges of water, the challenges of agriculture productivity, the challenge of improving learning outcomes, health outcomes. All these are humongous challenges in India. India also has huge diversity, in terms of languages across the country, in terms of culture. And therefore, India has a massive opportunity to build case studies of on artificial intelligence, and if we are able to find solutions to our challenges, of India's challenges, then we are not, finding a solution for the 1.4 billion people of India, but actually finding a solution for the next 5 to 6 billion people who will be moving from poverty to middle class in the next decade or so. But we have to do many things. I mean, we need, we have to restructure our courses. We have to have AI experts. We have to have product designers. Many things we need to do.
And at the beginning, Mr. Sahni sir, coming to you, but the importance of public digital platforms, because we are talking about the diversity when we talk about data, and I think human resources is one of our core strengths. So in that sense, could you just quickly explain the kind of roadmap, or perhaps if there are any pilot projects already underway, which are not really classified and you can talk about them, where do we stand and what's the kind of beginning that we've made?
I'll add to what Mr. Amitabh Kantji has mentioned already, that data is the fuel for a lot of magic to happen. And one way that we are helping organize data well, prepare ourselves to make best use of data analytics and AI algorithms is through the national public digital platforms. The Aadhaar, GSTN, GEM, UPI, the Unified Payments Interface, these are examples of nationwide platforms. And these are typically reasonably thin by way of technology. They use open APIs, but they do some magic because they bring data, organized data at a nationwide scale. They suddenly make it possible to create new solutions, to create new analytics, work around analytics and new algorithms, which can actually help create completely new products and services. So now we are trying to move forward with similar nationwide platforms in healthcare, in agriculture, in education, another platform around the criminal justice system, which would combine investigation, policing, and all the work in courts, forensics, etc. And similar things that would connect jobs and skills. So when you bring a nationwide scale, I think we create something extraordinary. We create an opportunity to build on top of a nationwide platform. What that has done in case of UPI is create huge successes and products and services that grow exponentially because they start with such a wonderful they have a huge platform to build on, and 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion dollar, 1.4 billion kind of population to serve. So what we create with this can actually go on to capture markets across the globe.
Fantastic. So when we talk about capturing markets across the globe, I'm quickly going to come to Ms. Ghosh there. You've mostly advocated, or perhaps you've talked a lot about the AI playbook, moving from service-oriented to being product generator. And when we talk about the human resources being our core strength, and I think we're there almost, ma'am, would you say?
Well, I'll give you one interesting data. There's a report that comes out every year called State of AI. It's a report that certain researchers come out with, a fabulous one that gives you an understanding of what's happening around the world on AI. One of the focus areas is talent, and it talks about one of the leading countries today in AI, which is US. And where does that talent come from? 50% of the US AI talent comes from other countries. China contributes around 27 or so percent. And for US. Next is India. India contributes 11% of the talent that is actually driving all the innovation.
I want to quickly have Mr. Wadhwa's reaction here, and you can continue there, because I think you know what I'm going to ask you, Mr. Wadhwa. And if Indian AI minds can contribute to US ecosystem, why not at home?
Debjani is 100% correct over here. You got to realize that AI is hyped to the point that, I'll say this, without being very controversial here. IT in America, people don't understand AI. Companies claim they're using AI, they have no idea what they're doing. And this is what the big opportunity for India is right now.
That's a very strong statement.
Desperately need help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am, please continue.
If India can build an IT services capability for AI, over the next 5 years, it could rival the size of India's IT industry today. That's how big the opportunity is. Because
it's actually bigger. It's actually bigger, Vivek.
Yeah,
it's much bigger, because we just did a study, NASSCOM just completed a study on what would be the impact of the GDP of just pure AI play in India.
On GDP.
Especially given the pandemic. As we are recovering from the pandemic, and if we do get our act together, the conservative number is 500 billion in the next 5 years, right? And that's a conservative number.
The entire market, because the Chinese are out of the United States. I mean, then Chinese students aren't even being given visas anymore. It's as toxic in India. Every child going to school right now should be learning AI, and because in the next 5 years, the opportunities are going to increase exponentially.
All right. So
if I can just, to your question on the playbook, I'll just add to that. See, the way we have to see AI is it's the most effective problem-solving tool that humans have created. That's how I see AI, right? And when you think of it that way, just what Mr. Kant said, two things. One is India has tremendously challenging and interesting problems for AI to solve. Second is the diversity and the largeness of the country. Just think of it. If we are able to use AI to figure out how to conserve water in India, we are not just going to impact lives of 1 billion people, but we can scale it to 7 billion, whatever is required to impact the whole world. So for me, in the strategic advantage of India is, I honestly believe we are the best playground possible for AI.
The best playground possible for India. And Professor Mosam, you've been nodding throughout. So we need to play now. We need to play in this playground. And I think we've made a huge beginning, considering the way Niti and MeitY has put this summit together. You have the Prime Minister at the helm. And giving all the support that is required at the government end. How do you look at this ecosystem, or perhaps the startup system pertaining to AI, if at all I'm allowed to use the word? Where do we stand?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would say that I really resonate with the panelists here, especially when Vivek said that people say they're doing AI, but actually they don't even know what that is all about. In fact, there was a very interesting study that was done in Europe where they said that a lot of startups who are asking money for their AI products, 40% of them have no AI in it. It's just a buzzword.
So they don't know how to spell AI.
Sorry?
I said they don't know how to spell AI.
Yeah, right. So there's a funny thing that is said that if you want funding, use the word AI. If you want to hire somebody, use the word machine learning. When the real actual job happens, then you just ask them to do some data analytics. No, I'm not belittling anything. I think all aspects of this are extremely important, because until we do data analytics, we cannot really have the machine learn. And until we cannot have the machine learn, we cannot really get AI to the final forefront. So I think there is a continuum, but a lot of companies only do data analytics. They don't get to take the AI leap, but still claim themselves as AI. So that's where I really resonate with Vivek. Coming back to the question at hand, where are we? And I really agree with you that this government especially has done a commendable job in bringing AI to the forefront in this country. Right around the time when GDPR had started happening, our own country brought out the AI policy. Niti Aayog got the AI policy in 2018. I mean, that's pretty amazing, considering that we have been traditionally been a country which has been really behind in technology and, policy on top of technology and things like that. So I think Prime Minister Modi and the government has been taking a very visionary approach to the inclusive use of AI in this country. And I think there are a lot of very interesting policies that the Niti Aayog document had at the time. And I'm still waiting for those implementations. And maybe Ajay Sahni and Amitabh Kant can help us more with that. But there were some very interesting ideas that we want to have centers of research excellence. We want to have ICTIs, which are technology transfer hubs, where a good research will go into the fields. Then AI is compute intensive. And so we would have Airavat, a big, fat compute cluster where all this computation can happen. The ideas were absolutely phenomenal. I think the ideas were excellent, but I think we are a little behind on the implementation. Especially, I think creating a compute cluster is fairly easy. It just requires money. And where I feel the biggest challenge, you also asked about startups. We are actually not doing badly on startups. The numbers say that we are 5th in the world when it comes to number of AI companies. We are 5th in the world when it comes to number of AI jobs. I get to hear so many startups all around me all the time. And if I was in Bangalore...
Let's simplify this. This is a very important factual point that you've raised. 5th, Mr. Kant, taking this to you, 5th in the world when it comes to AI startups. Not really comparing with the Chinas and the Americas, but if you look at the GPAI grouping, and India is one of the founding members, we are looked up. I mean, the kind of response you got there in this summit.
So,
Is it a good beginning? 5th in AI space globally, and still we are saying that we've not done much.
No, we've done a lot. We are the 2nd biggest startup ecosystem, the 2nd best startup system in the world today. We've been able to do it in a span of 4 years. We are, as far as AI usage in startup is concerned, we are seeing some phenomenal work. In fact, all the startups which are doing incredibly well, I mean, look at Flipkart or look at Ola or look at Oyo, they are able to do well because they're using the power of artificial intelligence in their functioning. And look at a young startup like Imbibe, young girl who runs it. She started tracking students of Rajasthan and subject-wise, how they are performing, whether they're going up or down. And using the power of artificial intelligence, she's been able to track students whose learning outcomes were poor, give them extra dosage of education, and improve performance. Or look at a company like Netradyne, which has, used the power of AI in transportation and has done some amazing work. And similarly, we have a number of startups across health, and there are too many of them right now who are using the power of AI to improve health outcomes. And therefore, these are one of the key things that we've done is that in Atal Innovation Mission that we run, we worked with NASSCOM to create an artificial intelligence module where we started teaching AI from class 6 onwards. So we run about 6,000 tinkering labs where along with robots, 3D printers, we actually teach artificial intelligence. So these are students who will grow up much like we've grown up with computers, this present generation. They will grow up with AI, and this will be all on the power of mobile. And this will be a phenomenal, this will be the technological leapfrogging of India.
Yes. Mr. Sahni, now, if we've gone up drastically in the last 5 years, I'm talking about the innovation index. India's positioning has changed. What about AI index? What about the systems? What I want to know from you, as far as the government of India is concerned, the portals, the systems that are already in place, the pilot projects, and with that, if you could also talk about the data sharing and all that comes with the risk management, mitigation of risk, security, responsibility, and much more.
Let me start with your last question first. When we build systems, and now, when you talk of nationwide platforms, these are not really systems, these are ecosystems. There's an ecosystem around health, there's an ecosystem around education, there's an ecosystem around logistics. So these are ecosystems in which all the active players, whether it is government entities or it is private sector, can all participate and can all be a part of one common ecosystem. And it's exceedingly important to get it right. It's very important to make sure that, the data protection happens correctly. Privacy concerns are taken care of.
Yes.
Security is built into the entire setup, and whoever accesses data also has a certain responsibility to handle it in a responsible manner, not to sort of misuse. So when you create an ecosystem,
we ought to have the checks and balances. There has to be a deterrent. There has to be a system that keeps a constant check on that. That's a very important aspect.
A large amount of data can actually be available absolutely free. It's open data. It can be used by everyone. It helps all the researchers. It helps all the innovators to actually develop things on top of that. But there's certain data which is in live systems. For instance, data from GSTN and certain data which, when it is made available, we would like it to be handled in a responsible manner. In a manner where the roles and responsibilities are brought out clearly, which is auditable, which which helps build trust and confidence in the entire ecosystem. Doesn't raise questions. It actually enables new solutions to come in rapidly. So this is the kind of an ecosystem we are trying to build domain-wise, and it's going to be part of an overall India enterprise architecture.
Okay.
So that even though these ecosystems take shape independently, they all fit in like a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
So eventually, all of these actually use Aadhaar, for instance, as a common, common artifact for citizen identity. We create many other elements of infrastructure which are shared across this ecosystem.
Okay.
But the vertical ecosystems actually help us prepare tremendously for making best use of the new technologies.
So, Ms. Ghosh, we already have a broader architecture paper. Implementation, the blueprint is there, and the high impact domains that we are looking at, and the sectors where AI and its advantages can be leveraged in India, in the Indian context, basically.
Yeah, so by the way, we don't just have it on paper. A lot of the work is actually on ground, and it's happening. Yes. And if you look at the AI framework, a national AI framework, there are a few things to it, and I'll give you my very quick SWOT and then talk about the verticals. I mean, the first thing you need is a strategy, which, as you said, we were one of the early countries to come out with a strategy. Second, you need data. As Mr. Khan said, we generate tons of data thanks to Aadhaar and GSTN and mobile phones, etc., etc. The challenge we have is we need to put in place standards and protocols to ensure that the quality of the data is good. We have the right trustworthiness built into our data system. We have sharing protocols, as Mr. Soni said. So there's some work to be done, but there's a lot happening. Third is talent. In 2018, the government, Ministry of IT, joined hands with NASSCOM to launch a massive initiative called Future Skills, which was to train the IT industry on these new digital skills, including AI. And by end of this year, we will launch the next version of Future Skills with MIT to train nearly around 4 lakhs, but the total will be, with the IT industry combined, will be 4 million people on these new age skills in the next 3 to 4 years, right? It's called Future Skills Prime. So we've absolutely started the work. We are going at, we are going at breakneck speed to make it happen. And then lastly, you need technology stacks. We have enough technology stacks and you need an execution plan. What Mr. Sawhney is talking about, the platformization strategy, that's the execution plan. That's what's going to help break the silos that we have in India and create national platforms or pipelines or whatever ecosystems, as we call them, drive. Now, what are the key verticals? If you look at the data that we have come out with on the 500 billion impact, the verticals which are going to contribute the most to the 500 million are consumers and retail. Agriculture is the second biggest, healthcare, education, telecom. So, we've got the full list of verticals that will contribute to the 500 billion. But I would also add here that apart from looking at the economic value of AI, we should also look at what AI can do to solve the social problems that India has, because it can make a huge difference. Water conservation, public health. There's so many issues that AI can be used at, and they should be prioritized too.
Okay, if you could just talk about specifics. Mr. Bhadra, I'm coming to you. In fact, in your interventions earlier, you've talked about how artificial intelligence can actually be individuals, I'm quoting your statement, sir, personal medical assistants. And if we look at the doctor to patient ratio, the number, what we have in India as compared to the recommendation by WHO, though there's not much gap, but there is a gap, let's face it. So in that space, since ma'am specifically mentioned, besides other sectors, the health space, your thoughts on it?
There's one company in Delhi that I'm involved with called HealthCube, for example. They have a medical device which is the size of a small box, which does the same test that hospitals do. So you can do blood tests at home. You can do 12-lead EKGs. You can check for dengue and malaria. You can even do antibody tests on that device. Now, they're trying to get the price of it down to about $200 or so, which will make it affordable for most families there. Now, imagine if you could test yourself every day. If you're not feeling well, you get all of your vitals measured and you upload it to the cloud. And then you have the AI applications that monitor it and advise you. If it looks like someone in your family is sick or your neighborhood is sick, it advises you on that. If it looks like your temperature is rising or your blood pressure is low or your glucose level is high, it advises you on that. So the key to health is prevention. Treatment is the most expensive part of it. So if we could have AI assistants guiding us in our day-to-day life, saying, okay, you need to go and start exercising, your weight is increasing. So these devices on our smartphones, coupled with the sensors which can monitor our health, that could create a revolution, and it's going to start in India.
Brilliant. Professor Mawsam, just to add to that, but then good AI should not go bad way. The risk mitigation part.
Sure. Yeah.
Controlling that
two types of risks. One is the risk in our mind, and one is the real tangible risk. So one of the risks in our mind is, AI is going to kill everybody. AI is going to overtake the world. AI will become our overlord.
Take the jobs.
I'm going to come to jobs in a minute. But let's first talk about the science fiction type of risk. I want to just tell people that there is absolutely no risk whatsoever. It is only a figment of our imagination. It is only a figment of the imagination of the movie writers who give this imagination to people at large, and they start believing that AI might take over the world. I think that's all.
Famous last words.
But then let's come to, so you raised the question of jobs. See, jobs is a slightly tricky thing.
No, let's clear the air about it.
Sure. See, what happens over the period of time in our world is that new technologies have come in and some previous technologies have gotten sidelined. This has happened every time. When industrial revolution happened, this has happened when, radio is no longer the in thing. So there are fewer radio announcers. There are many more TV announcers, for example. Now the movie theaters are going down and Netflixes are coming up. We are constantly working in this world, which is constantly evolving. It is constantly changing. It is constantly transforming.
By the way, the theaters are back, but it's not going to have any impact on Netflix, I'm sure, or others.
Sure. I'm sure. So in the very same way, I completely agree that AI is going to change some disruption. In fact, it is said that it is going to have a significant disruption.
Okay.
So while we cannot take this on the side and we say, no, there is no danger whatsoever. No, we can't say that. For example, in the US, 5 or 10 years from now, we might not have a single human truck driver anymore. It is quite possible that all those truck drivers will become AI drivers, and all these truck drivers will need to be given new opportunities, and we need to be reskilled. It is quite possible. That's not going to happen in India yet. The point is that yes, there is a churn, and when that churn happens, two things need to be remembered. One, these people need to be re-brought into the society in a different, they need to be reskilled. That's one. Two, we need to ask ourselves, do we need technology in this particular application? For example, every country has its strengths and weaknesses. US or Japan has fewer number of people. So where you can bring in autonomy, they like to bring in autonomy because they don't have enough people. In our case, we don't buy dishwashers which wash our dishes. We have maids who wash our dishes. We get the benefit, we get the joy of helping a fellow human. At the same time, they get the job, and we don't need to invest money in dishwashers.
Basically, human resource.
It's regulation. It's all about regulation. We need to think about in which application AI has a role to play.
And I'm sure there is absolutely very important. Mr. Kant, we already, I'm sure, have done a lot of spade work, the MeitY as well as Niti Aayog, the do's and don'ts, and how to have the deterrent, how to have the filter, how to have the system in place to check balance, etc. My question to you is that now the question comes, how do you bridge the gap between having lagging behind when it comes to R&D and patents and the research and development bit of it, the artificial intelligence innovators?
So, I wanted to respond to what Professor Mawsum said for a minute. And, because India doesn't require driverless cars. That's not a challenge for India. India's challenges are very different. And Silicon Valley may be the most innovative place in the world, but it has no challenges. It is derived of any challenges. And therefore, all the challenges are in India.
Let me have a quick reaction from Mr. Wadhwa. Do you agree with him, Mr. Wadhwa?
I actually agree. I've said this many times that the people here cut off from reality. We live in heaven over here. I mean, the beautiful weather, all the things we might need. These kids are spoiled. That's why they focus on social media and, doing all this evil with devices like Facebook, because they can think of no real problems to solve. Therefore, they do stupid things. There are a billion people in India, a billion problems to solve, a billion opportunities to solve them. So I completely agree with...
I disagree. You have forest fires of a level that India has not seen so far, even though we have much higher temperatures. So I wouldn't go as far as saying there are no problems, but I completely agree with Mr. Kant that, we have like a full house of them.
We have bigger problems.
We aren't going to solve forest fires. This is not their problem.
Mr. Kant, please, let him finish the point. Yes.
Let me come back to this issue. And I think this is a very important question that you raised about patents, R&D. And I think first and foremost, it's very important that we build up strong computing power. 150 to 200 petabytes of power. And that has to be through the computer, the knowledge network, which links up all the universities so that every college, every university can be able to use up. And secondly, we need to restructure our courses in, triple IITs, NITs, colleges, all reorient them for creating artificial intelligence scientists, data scientists, and reorient them to create great product managers and product designers. We do not have outstanding product managers and product designers, and that is what we need for tomorrow. But let me also tell you that on the patent side, we've done a lot of work, a lot of hard work has gone in. And now, you are able to get a patent which used to take 6 years, you can get it in 1 year, and there's no pendency. And trademark, you can get it in a month's time, a trademark. So patent and trademarks actually have seen the biggest amount of procedural simplicity in India. Phenomenal jumping forward in these. And therefore, what we should unleash, our patent registration time is much quicker, much faster than USA and Japan now.
That's an advantage.
That's a huge. And what we need to do is get everybody to innovate, get everybody to solve India's challenges and problems and get them all registered as, create new patents, create new trademark, and that's the way to move forward. And nowhere in the world will you have such a vibrant, dynamic, young culture.
We're looking at, are we at the verge, sir, coming to you, some sort of artificial intelligence revolution? It will take time, but it will happen because we have so much in place, including a bit, if you could also talk about the initiatives in the field of artificial intelligence, National AI Strategy and National AI Portal. Not many people know about this.
I think we are definitely on the verge of something very big.
Okay.
As Vivek ji said, Silicon Valley doesn't have problems. They have the capability to solve problems, but they are running out of problems. Many other parts of the world have lots of problems. They don't have the capability to solve the problems. We have both, and we have plenty of both. We have plenty of problem solvers, and we have the ability to use technology, and we have the problems to solve. So this is where the rubber meets the road. And as we start solving problems in healthcare or in agriculture or in logistics or in pollution control, of course, it's specifically our problem to solve. So I think we will be very good at it. But wherever we end up solving these problems, we'll create new solutions, we'll create new products, we will create new devices. And these are problems which are afflicting large parts of the world. So I think that with the kind of talent we have, we are really on the verge of something extraordinary. And recently we held a startup challenge round in the context of Raise 2020. And we gave just about, I think, 10 days time for the companies to apply. We got almost 300 solid companies, and we were able to find 15 which are extraordinary. In fact, we couldn't stop at 15. We shortlisted, we showcased about 21 of those. Each one of these has the capability to become extraordinarily large and extraordinarily effective. These cover healthcare, these cover education, these cover mobility, and these, they are going out and solving problems, and they are doing some magic with the available technologies. So this is the opportunity today for India. I think this is where it actually all comes together. We have the finest R&D for MNCs also happening at the hands of Indian engineers who are employed by the MNCs here in India. And we have these institutions like IIT Delhi and many others. And now these institutions are all over India. They are there in small towns. And many of them go out and find a problem to solve, and they are able to suddenly come up with something extraordinary. So this is our opportunity, and this is what we have to enable. This is what we have to walk this path along with them. We have to make it happen, not just to create new technologies and new solutions here, but to also keep them Indian, even as they grow beyond the boundaries of India.
Ms.
Let me
Ghosh,
throw one stat for you.
Yes,
In
sure,
Silicon
sure.
Valley,
Please.
about 15% of all the startups are founded by Indians. Some of the leading companies are led by Indians. Patents. Did you know that 15%, actually about 14% of all of the United States patents have Indian co-authors on them? So if Indians can do so much over here, why can't they do so much in India? And this is the beauty of what Niti Aayog and the government is doing right now, is they're opening up the opportunities so Indians in India can innovate like Indians in Silicon Valley can. And once they start doing that, it's going to really impact the world in a very positive way, because they're going to be solving real problems. I get so frustrated here. These bright, people have so many great ideas, yet they solve stupid problems, and then they can't get funding because the VCs don't understand the needs of the world. So the wrong companies get funded. So much talent and energy is wasted over here. The good thing about India is that you're going to be solving real problems, and they will benefit the world. That's the opportunity in India.
One of the strongest voices coming from Silicon Valley itself, Debjani Ghosh. When nothing is there to stop us, then what happens next? Did we make a beginning a little late, or we are right there, but there's a long way to go?
The race to AI is, first of all, I don't even see it as a race, and it's definitely not a sprint. It's a very, very long marathon. And I think we have been taking the right steps to build a strong foundation. You need a foundation in order to leap and make a real difference. And we've absolutely been taking the right steps to build the foundation around strategy, talent, policy, etc., which is going to now help us grow at that exponential pace that is required. And so I'm not too worried about when we started and were we late. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, honestly, because it's not a race, first of all. And it's about ensuring, I think the focus has to be on impact. Okay. Who can make the biggest impact? And as India, what I feel really proud of is the fact that we have identified responsible AI, inclusive AI as the focus area. We identified that from day one. If you remember Niti's strategy when it came out, it was AI for all. It was inclusive AI, right? Yes. And we are one of the very few, in fact, I think if I'm not wrong, Mr. Kant, we are the only country that has called that out so clearly in our vision statement, in our strategy. And I honestly believe that in the long run, if we can use AI as the greatest equalizer that was ever created by humankind to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-not, we will make the biggest difference with AI on humankind. And I absolutely believe that if we are able to do that, India's name, position, everything is going to be etched in the AI history as one of the leading countries. So I think we should just stay focused. And I do want to address one thing you asked about, is AI good or bad? I think, AI is neither good and AI is neither bad. It's humans that are good or bad. And behind every smart algorithm is a smart woman or a smart man who's serving the algorithm, right? Yes. So it's about figuring out, are we training people in the right way so that people are not passing or misusing the technology, or even sometimes unknowingly we pass on our biases to the technology. If I'm coding and I have a bias and I'm not aware of it, I will pass that on to the algorithms or to the technology that I'm creating. So how do we have steps? And this is why the focus on responsible AI is so important, because it will force us to put in place those guardrails or checkpoints to ensure that no one can stop misuse, but at least we minimize misuse. Yes. Right? And I think that's what I feel. I mean, that's the thing about the India plan that excites me the most.
So, just to wrap up this bit, is the concerned ministry, MeitY, taking cognizance, and I'm sure it is taking cognizance of all those pertinent points flagged by Debjani Ghosh? The risk management.
Absolutely. Inclusive AI has been an article of faith with us. It's part of Digital India. It continues to be a very important part of all our plans as we move forward, making sure that the last person in the queue also benefits. Everyone in India must benefit. And one of the ways, I would like to mention, and this illustrates both the problem and the kind of solution AI can bring and how it can help us bridge the digital divide, is what AI can do in language technologies.
Yeah.
We've always lived with the reality that there are people who know only Bengali, and there are people who know only Malayalam, and there are people who know only Marathi, and they cannot actually have a conversation with each other. And suddenly it's possible, making use of AI to sort of bring conversation back between very disparate parts of India. So speech to speech, real-time speech to speech becomes possible. So
brilliant
kind of magic it can do when everyone in India has a way to communicate without knowing the other person's language. Just imagine what magic it does.
Magic, pure magic.
These are the kind of elements of use of AI that we are going to focus on, and these will then enable everyone to participate and add value to this huge revolution that is on.
Okay, I'm going to quickly come to each one of you for final comments. I'm going to start with you, sir, because you, since you're taking a cue from what you just said. India and artificial intelligence global domain. Quick points. For what you call the blueprint, artificial intelligence blueprint for India.
So I think we'll put up a lot of more computing power. We'll create a lot of young talent, specially skilled for this, and we'll get them to solve our challenges for the rest of the world.
All right. Ma'am?
Create the largest data sets, the largest and the best data sets, because ultimately whoever has the data is going to win. Create the largest pool of talent and the best pool of talent, and create the most effective policy framework. And when I say effective policy framework, it has to be evolving, because none of us today on this panel know exactly what policy is needed. We are going to learn along the way. So create a framework that can move along and keep changing as we learn more.
So India has it to be there at the top when we talk about leading globally in artificial intelligence space.
I think we have all the different pieces of the puzzle. We have the intent, we have the hunger. We just have to put it all together, which we are doing. The faster we put it together, the better.
So, Mr. Wadhwa.
You know, the first thing I want to say is that the race has not even begun yet. The technology is only being developed right now that will allow us to do real AI, so which is a great thing. The second thing is I'm glad to see India leading over here, thinking about it, because every other country, take Silicon Valley, it's obsessed with money. China, it's obsessed with surveillance and suppressing dissent, right? India is now starting off by saying, let's use it to uplift mankind.
Absolutely.
So therefore, you know, it's imperative that India does do what it plans to do and lead the world in AI, because it will be a model for the rest of the world, and it might even save us from ourselves.
I think you've made a very, very strong point there, besides others, that India will use this technology. India will and India has to use this technology. That's the larger vision, Professor Mausam, to uplift the mankind. And that's exactly one of the reasons.
Mankind and womankind.
And women, actually, India's women have to lead, by the way.
Yes.
Women make the most responsible, most competent engineers.
Yes.
So,
That's the only other thing I would add. When you create
I'm coming
talent,
to you, sir. Yes, ma'am, could you please finish the point and go to the sir? Yes.
India has to lead in creating diverse talent. We need to have women data scientists. We need to have women developers, and we have to lead the way in that.
Yes. Professor Mausam and Mr. Kant, you will wrap up the show. Final word from you. Yes. Professor
So I share the
Mausam.
excitement that all my fellow panelists have, but I want
There's
to show a
lot of
little bit of
excitement,
caution
yes.
to the wind. We have the world's most interesting problems. We have a huge amount of data set. We can buy compute. I think we do have a little bit of weakness. I don't share the same excitement with regards to current talent pool that we have. We have a lot of engineers. We have a lot of people who are trying hard to develop their AI skills, but we do not have the right number of teachers to train them, and we definitely don't have the right quantity and quality of AI researchers to really energize the whole ecosystem. In fact, I earlier said the statistic, we are 5th in the number of AI jobs in companies, but we are 10th in the number of AI researchers. We are 13th in the quality of research that is coming out. I believe that unless we also fix that side of the system, we will not collectively be able to push
Mausam, let's build the AI tutors. Let's have AI teach the people how to use AI. That's the solution.
Sure.
Here.
I mean, you can take this further, Vivek, and you can just say that AI will solve all the problems and AI will, use all the techniques.
No, we need AI
Eventually, there is
tutors.
a process here, and the process requires that we have lots of MOOCs, but that has not really skilled anybody to a large extent. It has given them some
AI
initial
tutors,
skills,
my
but
friend.
not
Let's
to the
build
level
the
of
AI
depth
tutors.
that we want. So
Let's
eventually,
build the
we
AI
want
tutors to teach the people.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
But we
I
want
think-
Viveks of the world to come back to India, and we want them to really energize the ecosystem, and we want them to teach.
But the Viveks of the world, even sitting in Silicon Valley,
there.
have so many good things to say about
Sure,
India's human resources and its contribution in AI.
We are at the cusp of a very major transformation. And the only way we can grow on a sustained basis over a 3-decade period is to use cutting edge technology to leapfrog. Quite often in India, we get into sunset areas of growth, and it's very difficult to penetrate markets once you got into those areas because the world market has already been captured by others. India must get into sunrise areas of growth. It can be electric mobility, is battery storage, is blockchain, whatever, but AI is a transformational technology. And therefore, India has many advantages. It's the humongous amount of data, its challenges, its skilled manpower. All that you need to do is to switch over from software engineers to AI engineers. And therefore, India is really poised to be a key driver and a very major change agent of the world as far as challenges of the world are concerned by using AI for social change and social revolution. Our AI must be used for human good, it must be used for humankind, and it must be used to transform the world for a better world of tomorrow.
So India will show the way, even in the AI space, to the world.
Of course, we will
Yes.
show the way.
Yes. As one of the panelists, Debjani Ghosh, also talked about AI being the equalizer. We being the only country perhaps who are looking at using AI for our artificial intelligence, for the
one last
upliftment of
point.
human mankind. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And whatever we do, 51% of our artificial engineers must be women.
Yes.
On that extremely optimistic note,
No, wait, before you do that, Mosam, I teach them at Carnegie Mellon. I've been teaching the most advanced course in a whole range of exponential technologies. In fact, it's the highest rated class in the entire engineering school. I've offered it to Amitabh. Basically, I'm donating it to India. So this could give India a huge edge forward, by the way.
I look forward to taking the class. Thank you very much for doing that.
Absolutely.
I think this could easily run for another 1 hour. Thank you so much on this extremely optimistic note. India will show the way. The beginning has been made, in fact, a huge leap, not even a step. Thank you very much, Amitabh Kant, CEO, Niti Aayog. Thank you so much, Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Ajay Prakash Sahni, sir, for joining us. Debjani Ghosh, a NASSCOM president, very, very honored to have you on the show. I'm also going to thank Vivek Wadhwa, distinguished fellow Carnegie School of Engineering, all the way from Silicon Valley, for joining Doordarshan on this show, and Professor Mosam from IIT Delhi. Thank you, all of you, for joining us on DD Dialogue on Doordarshan. Thank you very much. And viewers, that's all we have for you in this very, very special edition. Thanks for staying with us. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Today, let's focus on the big picture, from running a business to creating a brand.
I see very exciting times for the digital revolution to really take off and move into the farthest corners of the country.
Whole experience that one as